Welcome to It Figures. Tonight I have a very special episode. So back in the 80s, I was a huge action figure collector, just like I am now. Nothing's really changed. But there were some figures that were made back then that they no longer produce now. There was two of them in particular that I've always wanted, and one was impossible to find, and the other one is super expensive. The super expensive one is the $6 Million Man. I've always wanted to purchase him again, but he goes for hundreds of dollars on eBay. And usually they're in really bad condition. The other, however, was just re-released like a few weeks ago, I believe. Actually, I don't even know when this was released because I didn't even know it was coming out. I was walking through Toys R Us and I saw this sitting on the shelf and it just stopped me in my tracks. I literally just stood there and looked at it for a second thinking, what? Is that real? So I went to go pick it up and I'm sitting there looking at the box and I'm like, I can't believe this. This is the one thing that I've been wanting for I couldn't tell you how many years. And it's a reissue of Stretch Armstrong. A lot of the younger viewers on here may have no clue as what Stretch Armstrong is. They're like, huh? What is that? So I thought I'd do a short history. And actually it is going to be a pretty short history because there isn't that much history with Stretch Armstrong. So here you go. Here's a short history of the character Stretch Armstrong. And then I will be doing the unboxing and review of the brand new 2016 version. I can't wait. The history of Stretch Armstrong begins in 1976, a year before Kenner Toys acquired the rights to Star Wars. The original Stretch Armstrong was created by James O. Cohen. Stretch was a blonde muscle man wearing nothing but a cloth Speedo and was filled with corn syrup, which is what made the stretching possible. From 1976 to 1979, Kenner was the largest buyer of corn syrup over those years. The original Stretch was said to be able to be stretched out 4 to 5 feet. Upon doing research, I couldn't find any background information on the character, which was unusual. Most action toys at the time had at least one origin story or some kind of cartoon associated with it, but not Stretch. He sold just because of the cool concept. One thing I do remember about my Stretch was how heavy he was, and it felt as if he were made out of some thick clay. Between 1976 and 1980, they made various Stretch figures, from Alien X-Ray Man, a bizarre Stretch Serpent, to the green monster that I always wanted but never got. There were Stretch Ollie and Stretch Olivia, male and female octopuses, and even some superheroes got into the action. Sadly, Stretch was not to last, and in 1980 his production came to an end. However, in 1990, Cap Toys reissued Stretch Armstrong along with his sidekick, Fetch Armstrong, and the villainous Vac Man, and they even had a Stretch limo. And this is when Stretch finally got his origin story in a form of a comic. I did end up getting the dog, which eventually burst like all the other Stretch toys before it, but I just couldn't bring myself to get the new Stretch, because I couldn't get past that horrible grinning face. I mean, really, what were they thinking? Alright, so I hope you enjoyed that. And now let's get to this. I do like the retro look they made to the box. It's not exactly the same as the original one, but it's definitely 80s retro. You take a look at the back of the box and you see these kids playing with it and stretching it and everything. Yeah, that's right out of the 80s. That's something that would have been on the box if it had come back out again in the 80s. Alright, let's see. How does this box open up? So it looks like the top of it opens up here. Even though I remember Stretch, I couldn't tell you if this is the exact replica of him or not, but let's take a look at it. First of all, he comes in a plastic container. From what I remember with the original one, I believe he was in a foam container, which held the figure a little bit better, but this isn't that bad. And he's in a plastic bag, as you can see. So here he is. The one thing I told my wife too is when I was a kid, I remembered how heavy this was. And, you know, it feels like thick Play-Doh or clay if you got hit in the face with this. It would probably knock you out. And yeah, he does have heft to him again, and it's great. And I also remember the cover for the original Stretch Armstrong. He was really detailed and everything. And this, his head is detailed, but the body has little or no detail. And the other thing that's really different with this, obviously, is the original had cloth shorts and he actually has painted on pants. Which, again, you know, that's not terrible because the cloth shorts, if you stretched his legs out or whatever, they would just fall off anyway. So I think it's better to have them painted on. So let's take a little bit more detailed look now at Stretch Armstrong. So before we go into more detail with him, let's take a look at the instruction booklet. First it says, congratulations on the purchase of the original Stretch Armstrong. Read all information in this manual thoroughly for operation instructions. He actually has thumbs and fingers and whatnot in the picture. Stretch will break if you pull him too far. Excessive stretching could result in damage from the toy. Do not pull Stretch too far. Stretch can stretch up to 4 feet, but stretching him too far can break your toy. Do not overstretch. When Stretch is cold, he is more difficult to stretch. So then it gives you different positions that you can put Stretch in. And on the back you have an important note. Always play safely. Do not wrap or tie Stretch around any person's head, leg, or arm. Stretch Armstrong is not indestructible. To stretch him, hold only his hands and his feet. Do not pull from shoulders or upper arms. Do not puncture or bite. Keep him away from sharp objects and pets. The one thing I liked about the original Stretch was his face. I always thought they did such a great job with the sculpt of his face. And here, it's just dead on. I believe this is from the original sculpt. I have a slight paint chipping on his hair, but no, not a big deal. And one eye is painted a little funky too, but again, not too terrible. One thing that surprised me here, which I don't remember from the original, his head turns. So I thought that was kind of cool that they had some articulation in him. Alright, so besides his head, he does have some detail in his chest. I assume those are supposed to be abs and pecs. If I remember correctly, however, when I was a kid, I thought he had nipples as well. Or it could have just been me being weird. But I'm pretty sure he did. If I'm correct, and if anyone else remembers that, let me know. Or you can just tell me I'm weird. His hands have very little detail. I mean, there is some resemblance of fingers and a thumb there, but I think that's the way it was on the original Stretch as well. And I'm a little disappointed in the painted shorts, but, you know, I understand why they did it this way. It's easier than giving him a cloth, and probably cost saving. And his feet, just like his hands, have little or no detail. On the back of Stretch here, you can kind of see a little bit of wrinkles that go up through his neck. I don't know if they all have this. I guess they must have pulled it up there to, you know, pull it tight and it just wrinkled on this one. But I have no idea if there are more out there like this or not. And like I said, he is solid. If you hit him, it feels like hitting hard clay. And unless you have either a custom stand or a figure stand, he's pretty much going to be laying there because it's impossible for him to stand up. I mean, seriously, he just, you know, melts when he stands up. Wow, this is just a blast from the past. Like I said, I've waited so long to own another Stretch Armstrong, and I never, ever thought I would own another one of these just because of the fact that they were filled with corn syrup and split open, and they were ruined because the corn syrup would eventually eat through his skin and split open. And who knows, this might do it as well, but it's still fantastic to own another Stretch Armstrong. You can stretch him, here he is. The one memory I have that's burned into my brain, and I don't know why, is back in the day, before they had all these malls and everything that you could go out to, it was mostly box stores. The box stores you would go to during Christmas time were spectacular. They would have all these big displays everywhere. And Stretch Armstrong was one of the big displays they had there because he had just came out. And they had him and the Stretch Monster, which I never got. I'm really hoping they're going to release him after they get, you know, done with Stretch here. And there was just this big table display of the Stretch Armstrong figures, and I really wanted him for Christmas that year. He was an original figure, and there was nothing out like him, and there's nothing out like him now. So I hope this is going to be a huge success for the company that releases him, so we can get the Stretch Monster. Don't really care about Stretch X-Ray or the other ones. I just want Stretch Monster. So let's bring up the old Figometer and see how the retro Stretch stretches out. What can I say? This is a figure I've been wanting for countless years. Many years. Since the 80s I wanted this back. And now I got him. And it's just so awesome, and it's so great to know that I own a Stretch Armstrong again. So this could possibly be one of my favorite figures that has come out in the last 30 years. So on the scale of 1 to 5, of course I'm going to give Stretch a 5 out of 5. Come on, I mean, it's Stretch.